here. So we are looking at ARCHICAD BIM training from a fundamental side of it. So we will be looking at the software from basics, and we will have the sessions as per schedule. And we will be starting with the fundamentals of the software. Right? And today's session will be quite slow comparatively because it's a starting day and you need to get to know the interface of the software. And from next session, the speed of the session may increase a little bit. So I would encourage all of you to start practicing on the topics that will be covered today. Let me start with some basics. So I have actually prepared some theory, which I'm not going to take much because I'm directly jumping into the software. Just giving you an idea on the BIM, we are just looking at creating a virtual model that literally going to contain all the information that is required for the project. I mean, you can be selective in terms of what information you're going to add into the project with respect to which field you're working on. Some of you might be architects, some of you might be looking into MEP side of it, some of you will be into the structural aspect of it, or even into operation of the building. So depending on that, whichever field you're working in, you can focus on that aspect of BIM. And if you're all-rounder, that's also good. Mainly, we are going to look closely into the modeling aspect of BIM with respect to ARCHICAD software. And that will be followed by, you will have documentation as well at the end. In between, we will also look at some of the fundamental concepts of BIM as well in terms of creating attributes. That includes like creating materials, surfaces, composites, complex profiles, etc. So this is just the brief of what is going to be there. I believe you are aware of the concept of BIM. If it is not, if you are not aware of it, just understand it this way, where you are going to create something in a virtual world that is going to represent what you are going to design or build later. It can also be a model that is going to be created after the construction as well. So some of the projects are scan to BIM projects where so the project is already done. You're going to scan it and you're going to use the point cloud data and even CAD data as well and convert that to a BIM model. So both the ways it works. So depending on how you work, please make sure to adapt to that. And probably when we have the break time and also when we have the doubt clearing session, whatever comes into your mind, you can discuss. And at any point of time, if you have any question, you can unmute yourself and you can ask the question, but give an introduction of what your name is and where you're from. That would be ideal. If you're part of a company, plus just make sure you mention that during the session. I hope that is all right. You can also make use of the chat box. I'll be looking at intervals if you have any doubts. So yeah, so let's start the session. Now, we are going to start from here, where how we are going to generate or start a BIM project, especially when it comes to ARCHICAD software. The concept may be very similar in other softwares as well, but the fundamental is going to be very similar with respect to creating a BIM project. Now, when it comes to ARCHICAD, we might be looking at a certain checklist. So that would be looking at the aspect of what a template is and what is a work environment and what is a working unit and what about the location settings or details regarding the project. Reference drawings imports, though, that is also something that we are going to look at in case you are working with the CAD to BIM type of a workflow, and setting up the project stories. So project stories is more like the levels of a project, but ARCHICAD might use something called stories. Again, I'll go in depth of these topics in the coming slides. So let's start from the templates itself. So let me just give a brief introduction of what these things are, and then we will jump to the software and look at how we set these things up. So starting with the template. So template is more like a pre-made setup of the software in which you may have options like the interface where the tools are placed. You can also look at what type of line type you're using and what all materials you're using in your form. So all these things together, including your title blocks for your sheets, can be created beforehand and prepare it like a template. And all you will be doing is picking up the right template. For example, if you have projects of commercial projects or residential projects of different types, you can create separate templates for that. The reason is that when you use a template, the whole workflow becomes really easy. So that's all about the template. But we are going to work with the default standard template that is being given to you by Graphisoft team, that is ARCHICAD 28 template. Now, regarding work environment, that is all about the setup that you have in your project. So this setup actually includes, like I mentioned, your interface settings where the tools are placed and how the settings are being given in terms. So even autosave options is one of them. Your shortcuts, all these things together become your work environment. So somebody who is working into the architectural side of it would be way different from the interior part, or somebody who is working in let's say a structural, so their interface will be way different from your side of it. So you can set up these interfaces or the work environment and change anytime, and it's all in the same interface. If you are, like I mentioned, an all-rounder, you can make use of all the interfaces together and make it something that you want it. Working unit, again, that is something that you are going to feed to the system. There is also something called dimensions, which we will see it later. Working unit, all about what you're going to type. So we work on one unit. At any point of time, if you want to change, you can change. Model will be automatically scaled and arranged for you. But software takes one unit at a time in terms of the feeding the data. And location settings, that is something very relevant when it comes to BIM workflow. You have to geolocate your project to somewhere on Earth. So that is something that we will be looking at in today's session as well. And it's necessary when it comes to a coordinated workflow. Sometimes we may be given by the surveyors the coordinate data, including the northing and easting values. So this data we will be using. And the project details is all about who is the client, who is the architect, what is the number, address, and all these kind of details. And that is also important when it comes to managing your project or sharing your projects. So let's go through one by one on the software itself. So let me just open it. Yeah, so you might see the interface to be somewhat similar to this page if you're using ARCHICAD 28 version. 27 version, if you're using, there might be a small difference in the home page. Other than that, many of the tools you might be looking at throughout the training will be very similar. So you have a couple of settings here, like opening a new project, sorry, or starting a new project, or opening an existing project, or working on teamwork if you're looking into BIM Cloud and working on a teamwork project. And you may also see some recent projects if you're done something, but right now I'm considering all of you are new into this. And you may also see some access to some sample projects. So sample projects will be the projects that have been already prepared and given to you for testing and also trying what all tools and features are there in the software. So you can look into it. There is also an option here called learning that will take you to some interesting concepts and tutorials that you can access directly from the homepage to the browser. And you will also get some news. So this is also something that really interesting. Sometimes some quick settings that you can change it. Something called the community tip. You can make use of that. There are a lot of options. A lot of developers out there. They're using ARCHICAD and creating something interesting there. So you can look into it. So let's go for creating a new project. So like I mentioned, there will be a pop-up in which it will ask you for a template and a work environment. So that is something that we are going to set it up in the initial stage. All right, so this is the pop-up first, where it is asking you for a template. So I'm going for ARCHICAD 28 template, but if your office probably in the later stages might be developing a template for the use, so that time you can pick up another template here and you can use it. So let me just go for the default template. And next one is the work environment, and that is going to be right now. It is showing me last profile used because I did some changes to my interface and did some here and there alterations. So instead, I'm just going directly to the architectural profile. This is where you're going to start. Later, you can go for the last profile used. Otherwise, you may have certain other ones that are customized. So for example, I have something called my environment for certain interface changes and also two screens. So you can set up your tools according to that. So let me just click on new. It is going to set up the project for you, which includes all the necessary materials, surfaces, title blocks, and many other settings, including the project levels. 。 . 。 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . . 。 . . 。 . . 。 . 。 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 。 . 。
. 。 . 。 . 。 .
。 . So next, we will look at the interface and navigation. These are going to be very similar to many other softwares that are around. So you may feel that it is very similar. First thing is the menu bar itself. So as you know, this is a standard software interface setup where you have file, edit, view, design, so all these kind of tools. So literally everything that is there on the interface are also there under this. At any point of time, you're not able to find anything here. You're always free to go through these options and find. For example, if I go to file, I get the option of creating a new project or sharing the project through the BIM Cloud option or Teamwork option, opening a project or saving the file, and also with respect to interoperability, you have all the options here. Then under edit, you have things like grouping and ungrouping or locking certain elements or moving the element around, making a copy, align, distribute. So all these options are under edit. Similar way, many other menu bars are placed here. And below that, we have a toolbar in which you can access the home page or undo and redo or find an element and pick a parameter, inject parameter, or even split an element here. And you have something called intersect and adjust. And all these options are right here on this. You can also change all these ones and make sure like sometimes we may need certain tools to use. Something that I usually use is something called quick layers. So those things you can bring it here, which we will see throughout the session. And below that, we have something called info box or info panel. So this particular area, this is an interactive area where if I select something, this interface part will automatically adapt. You can consider it like a element properties. So whatever property is there of the elements that you place in ARCHICAD, their properties will be visible. So it can be before drafting or even after drafted, both the ways we can make use of it. Anyway, we will get into it and you will understand how it is being used. And on the left side, you have the tools. So this is for the architectural interface where the design tool is all about, let me just expand a wall, slab, column, beam, door, windows. So all the tools that have been named with respect to the elements that we use in the project or architectural project. And if you're looking at a structural, the tools may change, or if you're looking in the MEP side of it, the tools also will change. And below that, we have viewport tools. So viewport tool is all about creating sections, elevations, interior elevations, taking details from the drawing or creating worksheets or creating or setting up cameras. And below that, we have document. So document is all 2D based elements, purely 2D. That includes taking up dimensions, level dimensions. That is also something interesting which we will see it soon. Making text or label and using grid elements if you have some structural labeling you want to do it. And line tool and polyline tool and splines and arcs and fills are typical CAD drafting tools that we usually see across the tool sets. And then something called hotspot if you're looking at something like a point, and figure tool and drawing are importing images or different drawing types. So we will be looking at these as well in the coming sessions. And on the right side, we have something called navigator. So just like the word suggests, navigate through the whole project, more like a browser of the project where you have all the stories. So stories are the floors, like ground floor, first floor, like that. Then you have something called sections, elevations, interior elevation. So right now, the default template has already 4 elevations. That's why you see them here. And also there are 3 stories set up. If something is not created, it will show you just like how the section is at this point. Otherwise, it will start showcasing it here the moment you start creating something. Anyway, we will look into those aspects as well. And one thing to remember, in the navigator, there are 4 segments. We will be starting with the first one that's called project map. And later in the final session, we are going through the other 3. So make sure you're here when you're working in the initial stages. If some of you are already worked with ARCHICAD, you might know how these things work. But I suggest those who are new to ARCHICAD, make sure to start from the project one. That's yeah. And one more important thing here, you have the view settings. When I say view settings, the viewport that you work, this is this canvas here. So just give me a second. Yeah, this space that you work, it's a canvas or a viewport. Anything related to that is going to be controlled by here. So for example, you can go to the previous zoom, how it was, or the next zoom, or zoom a specific area, or fit in window option, where if you are lost somewhere, you want to focus on to something that you have done here, it will take you to that point. You can control the zoom value. You can rotate the page. It does not rotate the north or anything. It's just the page rotation. I suggest you start with a 0. Probably later we can look into it. And the scale of the drawing, and something called layer combinations or partial structural display. So these tools are going to be explained later. But just for your understanding, the view related settings are located here in the architecture interface. And finally, you have something here called status bar. If I'm not wrong, that should be the name. So this is all about what command you're using, so you will get an idea. So for example, right now this arrow tool is active, and that is seen by this blue color around the tool. So it's saying that click an element or draw a selection area, press and hold Control plus Shift to toggle element or sub-element selection. So there are a couple of commands here that is possible when you are going to work, and that kind of things will help you later in the stage. So at any point, if you are wondering how to go ahead with the tool, just go here and start reading what is going to be the next move here. All right, so the next thing is the navigation. So right now you can see from here, ground floor level or ground floor story is open. That means it's a two-dimensional drawing or drawing space where you can use the mouse scroll button to zoom in and zoom out. Or if you hold the middle mouse button, it will pan around, something like this. I think you're familiar with it. And if you are on south elevation here, so I just clicked from this to open south elevation. And that is also a 2D based workspace. And that is also in the same command where zoom in and zoom out is a scroll button. And holding the scroll button is going to give you the pan option. And if I go to 3D, only small difference is that if you use shift and middle button, you get to orbit around. So for example, if I have, let's say, one chair here, if I want to zoom in and zoom out, it's the same. If I use the middle mouse button and hold it, it will pan around the model like this, and more or like a drag. You're not dragging the element, you're just dragging the camera position. And this is the origin, so you can relate it to that when I'm doing. And if I'm using the middle mouse button and shift, it is going to orbit around that particular object. So this is the basic navigation, very similar to many other software that are around. I would encourage you open a file which is already created. Like in the home page, I was showcasing it to you, the option here, that is the sample projects. So you can use the sample projects, download, and just learn about how the navigation work here. So I hope this much is clear. If anybody has any doubt, you can ask. Otherwise, we will continue. All right. Okay. I assume there are no doubts. So let's go further. Yeah. Next segment of it is we will start with saving the file. So you can go to File and Save, and it will pop up where to save it. So let me just navigate to the folder. So I'll give today's date. Yeah. And one thing to remember, ARCHICAD files, the native ARCHICAD files will be saved as .pln format. So it's ARCHICAD solo project format. That is the default file format that you will see. And wherever you save the file, you might also see one more file format called .bpn. So that is a backup file. So these are the major file formats that you might see. I would always encourage work with the PLN file, even though there is a backup file. And if you, let's say by any chance your system got crashed, I encourage you to open ArchiCAD, and it will show you that in red color that there is a file recovery, and open it directly from there would be the ideal way of recovering a file. If you use the BPN file, that is also okay directly opening it, but I encourage go through the ArchiCAD interface and open it. That would be the best method to recover the lost files. So there will always be one file, backup file, that will be the latest file itself. So just look into it, save the file and explore the file formats. Now we have done the saving part. Now we are going to the next aspect, that is going to set up the working unit. So like I mentioned, this is all about feeding the dimension to the system. So system understand one unit at a time. So what we do is we go to options. So this is where majority of the customization sits in ArchiCAD. So you go to options menu, and all the way down you have something called project preference. So you can see that the word is going to represent more towards setting up the project, or with respect to what you're going to do for the project. So the first one itself, that is a working unit. So there is also dimension. Don't confuse with it. Dimension is something that you're going to take it from. Working unit is what you're going to feed it to the system. So I'm going to click on that, and it will ask me which unit I'm working here. So I'm going to work with a millimeter itself, but if you want to work on a different unit, for example, feet and fraction inches, you take that and you give maximum precision. So I always suggest when you start the project, use maximum precision, and later you can filter out the precision and work. The other way is always hard to do it. So make sure you remember those points as well. And if you're using meter, make sure you give at least 3 or 4 decimal points, depending on how your office functions. So anyway, I'll just go for the millimeter and give it probably 1 decimal. So not required, but you can have that much of precision here. Similar for area volume as well. So you can set up all this information as well. Something that you can check is the layout unit. So this may come later. I would suggest work with a millimeter. That would be the least one that you can work with. It's all about the sheet setups and your drawings. So you could approach it in there as well. So I'm going with a millimeter, and let me just give OK. So that would be the first part of setting up the unit. Now, whenever I do anything in ArchiCAD, so for example, I'm taking a line here and drafting, the display that you're going to see here, for example, in this, that is showing some 6,000 something, that is in millimeter unit. So that would be the first part of setting up the project. Then the next one is the location settings. So that is for the geolocation aspect. Again, we are going to the same tool, that is options, project preference. So same method. So all the way down, you have something called location settings. So this is what we are going to use. A couple of things. One is latitude and longitude. I guess most of you are aware of this concept of what latitude and longitude is. If you have any specific locations that you want to add here, you can feed those values in this. You have both the decimal degree and the degree minute seconds option. I would suggest, if you have a surveyor, get the exact data of latitude and longitude from the person, because they might be locating it to a specific survey point as the origin, and from there they might be adding these northing and easting values. So if you get it from them, it's always the best method. Otherwise, whatever value that you're going to feed here, it is going to match with the origin of ArchiCAD. So that origin point is here. Both in terms of 3D space and 2D space, you might see this origin point. The same value is going to be represented with what you're going to feed here. It also includes the altitude or the sea level value. So if your location has that value as well, just make sure you give all this. And once you are done with this information, you can click on this option called Show in Google Map. So right now at this point, that location is added into the Graphisoft headquarters that is here in Hungary. So you can always cross-check. So this particular point where it is marked right now is the origin point in this particular project. So make sure to go through it and set this information. And additionally, you have something called project north. The default north setting is directly towards the y-axis. So just sketch it. So if this is the workspace that you're doing and you're in plan, the north would be towards this side when you are starting the project. But you can change this value. So whatever the value is, you can make sure readjust these dimensions and change it as well. So explore this. You can manually change it also, but whichever is your project north, make sure you adjust it. One thing I would always suggest, by any chance, if your project north is something like this, let's say, and your building is in X and Y axis in this manner, What I would suggest is follow this line and give more priority to the axis of the building. So if you're perpendicular in this manner, you can give less importance to the north axis and more importance to the building, because when you're drafting, it usually snap to the X and Y easily. So your workflow would be easier in that manner. It's just a working method that we usually use it. It's up to you how you want to work. You can also rotate it and work the page here. You can give it a rotation and do it as well. I would encourage, try to make sure if you have a rectangular building, follow the axis of X and Y of the interface, and you can rotate the north by changing it instead of keeping every time north to the same axis. All right, so that's regarding the location settings. So you go to options, project preference. So first we did the working unit, then we did the location settings. So within location setting, there are a couple of other informations as well. So for example, you can set up the project name and full address for the site. Uh, so if you go to this particular point that's called edit button, it will give you a detailed information option where one by one you can add. So let's say this project name is BIM training. Just type something. Yeah, similar way you can add all the other information like site information here, building details, contact details. So this is mainly the company detail, then the client information. You can also make use of this add button in case you are missing some kind of information to be added. Then make sure to click on add and give those informations here. Now, additionally, ARCHICAD also allows you to transfer this data or information between projects. That is by using these two options. So one is import and another is export. So if you do an export, it will export as an XML file, which you can import it back to any other project in case. So let's say you're lazy in the group and somebody else is already did the work for you. So you can collect that XML file from them and do it. Automatically, all this area will be filled and you can save your time in that manner. All right, so when I give OK, that is already changed the project name here. So this will be the file name, what you see here on the top, and on the top right, you will see the project name. Now you don't need to worry about all these things, but if you know the information, it's always the best. And if I go to site full address in the edit button, you get a couple of other options, whether you want to add the zip code or state, which state or which city you are in. You can add all this information. One of the fundamental reason of why we are doing all this in the initial stage is that we are not just making a model, we are making a BIM model. So you can keep that in mind. Going further, if I just go to project preference, you also have the option here to set project north. Before we did it in the location settings, you can also manually do it by using the set project north option, where you get this symbol here, where first click will place it and second one will define which direction. So if you have, let's say, CAD file reference added here, you can make use of this tool to precisely aligned instead of typing that particular dimension. So there are multiple options here for you. And you can also activate the survey point by clicking on the show survey point option, where it will show you where exactly. If you have added your northing and easting value, it will change accordingly. So you can see in the screen those dimensions for easting and northing the moment I'm changing this. So this point might be the coordinate point, but wherever you place this will be the survey point. So sometimes those two values will be given to you by the surveyor. So I always suggest get those informations. Your file will be properly placed in the coordinate. I'll just turn it off and just keep only this right now. So you cannot select it or edit it. It just stays there so that you will understand where it is created. And in terms of workflow, I will always suggest make the model very close to this point, because all the 3D based softwares or 2D softwares does the calculation from this origin point. So the further you go, lesser precision it is going to have when it comes to many of the calculations. It tries to give the precision, but the closer it is, the best output it will give you. I mean, it's going to be the same for all the software. Everything is in the 3D space calculation. They do it from 0 point to the coordinate point. All right. Now, let me just get back to the presentation. And the next part is going to be the reference drawing input. And for this particular project training, what we have done is we have created a couple of DWG files as a reference to bring it to ARCHICAD and work. Uh, you don't actually need to do it, but just showcasing some of the ways of working with ARCHICAD in case you have a CAD file with you. And you can also see for different levels, I have different CAD files. And the reason is that most of the cases, when we work on CAD softwares or 2D based CAD softwares, we put the floor plans next to each other. So, but in the ideal case, it should be stacked on top of it. If it is stacked on top of it and also arranged or organized into layers, you can still import them together. But if it is not, ideal case is always bring them into separate CAD files and you can bring it. I mean, this is one of the way of working it. You don't need to really do it. Whichever one you're comfortable with, you can do that. But I suggest approaching it this way. We have also given a column schedule and a beam schedule PDF files. So when you're going to receive your session videos, recorded videos, within the same mail, you will also see a drive link to access these files for your trials. All right, so now I need to import these ones to my ArchiCAD software. So there is a workflow that we usually do when it comes to bringing in an external drawing, because considering the case that external drawing is created by somebody else, it's always ideal to respect their workflow and not to change anything here. You can also do the changes, but one of the ways of approaching it is bringing it as an external drawing and placing it on the side, more or like you have a border sheet and then a sketch on the side. So what you can do is on the right side on the navigator, we have something called worksheets. So we are going to make use of the tool. So that would be like the first tool we are going to use it. Do a right click and go for new independent worksheet. So we are creating something like a worksheet that is not going to be connected directly to any of our 3D model. So you can give it an ID here. So let me just see what to bring first. So we can start with the project level. So I'm going to give the same name so that it will match. So level -2. So I will name it as LVL -2, or I'll paste it here. So my ID is going to be -2. Name is going to be level -2 here. Create. Now, when I click create, it creates something very similar to the ground floor. The only thing is that it is independent of the 3D elements, unlike the ground floor. Ground floor level or ground floor story is actually a cut that has been taken on the model, but this particular worksheet is independent of it. All right, so let me bring it here. So it's as simple as selecting the drawing, doing a drag and drop. So this is one of the methods. There are still many other ways, but this is something that I suggest you start with. And it will ask you which unit you worked on when you were using the CAD. So I did it in millimeter. I'm aware of it. That's why I'm going to select. If you are not aware of which unit you worked on, either you check and clarify with the source. Otherwise, you use all these options, especially these 4 options. Check the dimension if it is correct. If it is not, I encourage you delete it or undo it and then import it again and change the unit and check. One of the reason is that most of the cases when we do a scale, let's say your model has imported with a millimeter precision or metric precision, and when you're going to scale it, even if it has a smaller amount of an error, that error is going to be multiplied, and that is not an ideal way of working. So that's why I'm saying go and find out which unit you worked on and then bring it into ArchiCAD. So I click on place and you can see it already brought something here. And when I click on it, it will highlight in a green color. So ArchiCAD elements are usually highlighted in green color like this. And it's just one single piece. There are no separate lines or separate circles here. It comes like this, and this is something called a drawing. It's an external drawing. But there are many other features to it, which anyway, we will see it in the coming sessions. What I want is, for this particular project, I have not done any georeferencing. So I'm going to take a decision that this particular point of it, I'm going to use it as a origin point. So all that I did is I just clicked here and I have something here called a pet palette. So this is going to be the second part of the additional information, in which you have an option here called move sub-element. Below that, I have something called drag. So in ArchiCAD language, there is move and there is also a drag. Drag is all about, again, moving the same element but the complete element itself. But if you see something like move, it might be looking a very specific part. Don't worry about it right now. We will go into these elements or go to these tools soon. But make sure that you're using the drag option here and move it. I'm not doing a click and drag. I just did one click and I left the mouse and I'm just moving it, placing it to the point. Something I want you to check here is when I go close to this point, you can see my cursor changes to a tick symbol. So that actually means that it is snapping there. So when I click there, it will be moved. There are also commands which we will see soon, but I'm just making sure I place it to the right location. This is not the ideal method. Again, I encourage you to make sure to place the survey point in the drawing, then you bring it so that you can easily match it. Here I have not given it. That's why I'm just doing a little bit of a jugaad work. All right, let me bring other one. I'm doing the same option here, level -1, create. I'll go to the folder and I'm just going to drag and drop here, millimeter place, and I'm going to take it to this point. Make sure I manage to do the right location. I'll also go for level 0. And you can see they're coming here one by one. So let me drag and drop. Place. So click on this point, match it to this location. There is also level 1. Level 2. So IDs are usually numbered automatic, but you can change it also manually if you want to. And finally, level 2 here. I don't think there is much on the level 2. Yeah, just the grid. And see. Yeah, so this is the first step. We brought in a CAD file as a drawing, and we have arranged them on the basis of the origin point, so they are always geolocated or organized in the correct way. So yeah, so that's the first part. I want to ask here if anybody has any doubt, you can unmute yourself and ask. Otherwise, you can also make use of the chat box.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I do have a doubt.
Yeah.
After creating the worksheet, does the reference file tab opens automatically, specifying the file location?
Oh, no, it's a linked file. So
Okay.
if the source is lost or moved, you may have to relink it again.
Okay.
Yeah. It's more like an XREF, but in a different format.
Oh, okay, sir.
Yeah. But you can relink it. There are options for that.
Okay, sir.
Anybody else? Any doubts? Okay, all right. We'll go to the next part, that is setting up the project stories. So for our project, I have also added a couple of other drawings as well, including a section and then a reference key map. So I'm going to bring one of the section and this as well as a CAD file for the reference. And then I'll show it to you how to match these and create these stories. So in ARCHICAD, levels are called stories. They're not exactly levels, but they're more or like the floors, ground floor, first floor type of format. But if you want to work like levels, you can still do it. It might make it a little bit difficult for you to use. But yeah, you can approach it. There is no issue. I recommend working in this manner. So let me start by bringing in the key plan here. So let me just name it as key plan. I mean, the way I'm numbering is not the right way. I would suggest you keep a numbering system and you can also manage it through probably an Excel or something, or within ArchiCAD also, you can do it through worksheets. You can create columns and all these things, and you can set up the information there so that these drawings can be managed. But for now, I'm just going to have these random names. Let me just bring in the reference key map. And now I have a small issue where I don't have the references to refer it to. But I have actually something that I can make use of it, that some of these columns that you see in the drawing, they can be related to, for example, here, this particular level. So now we are going to look at a new tool or a new feature that is, or not a new feature. For us, it is going to be new now. That is going to be useful to align when some information is not available. So this is called trace option or trace and reference. What we are going to do is I need to move this and align it to level 0 worksheet. So all I'm going to do is do a right click on that particular worksheet, that is 0 level 0, and I'm going to use show as trace reference. So when I activate that in a faded color where you cannot select it, it will appear. So now you can kind of match these things and place it. So this is one of the method that we usually use it for many other purposes as well, especially when it comes to using a reference for our workflow. So and then move on, going to adjust to that particular location, make sure everything else is correct. Then you can turn it off by going all the way up where it is written trace. Just click on it, it will remove. Now I'm confident that this is placed exactly in the same location with respect to the origin point. So this is what I was talking about. If that survey point is not marked on your floor levels or drawings, you will have this kind of issues in terms of matching. So make sure to have that in your drawing. Let me also bring one section. So let me just decide which section to do. Probably I'll go for X0 reference section, or I can also go for X4 here. Yeah, I think X4 is something that I can use it. So let me just name it as X4 section. Create. And let me just do a drag and drop. It's the same method. Now, most of the things are going to be repetitive. Now we have a small issue, that is, it's a vertical section, but all the references that we have is a horizontal section. We will match it soon, but the purpose of bringing this particular drawing to our page is only to look at what all these levels are. So you can see these are already given, and this is in meters, but we are working in millimeter. That's okay, but we are going to match it here. So this is going to be the last part in terms of setting up the project, and that is the story settings. So you can open story settings in different way. One of the method is just right clicking somewhere here on the stories and go to story settings. Otherwise, you can use a shortcut Control 7, or even going all the way here and then doing a right click and going to the story settings. So any of these three methods will do the job. If you want to remember the shortcut, Control 7 would be the shortcut that you can remember. ARCHICAD has very less number of shortcuts, so it's kind of easy to learn. Yeah, so here this is the default where you have a number of stories of 0, 1, 2 and a name space which you can feed it if it is ground floor, first floor, second floor, like that. And you have the elevation value with respect to the 0, that is the origin point, which we already saw it in the floor plans and the 3Ds. And the height to next is all about floor to floor height. So if from ground floor to first floor is 3000, you can feed that information here. But our system is all about level 1, level 2, level 3, like that. So R0, let it be level 0 itself, and we are going to name this one as level 1, and this is going to be level 2. So in this, this particular number is consistent, but the text can be changed. So this ID system in ARCHICAD, given for the stories especially, they are constant here. Now I'm going to add below. So you can make use of the option here called insert below. So you can try this. There is option to delete a story, insert something, or above or below. Both options are there. So let me give insert below. We will give level -1, and another one is level -2. And now next one would be setting up this project level. So like I mentioned, you can either go for height to next, that is the floor to floor height. Otherwise, you can go for the elevation value. Because we are aware of the elevation value, I'm just going to feed it directly here. This is 2500 and this is 5500. And similar way we get to minus 2,500. And here we have minus 5,500. I think it's pretty easy. And you can also have a look here in the height to next option where it is automatically did the calculation for the values. So either of the value you can feed, whichever that you are aware of, you can make sure that value is fitting. All right, so let's just give OK. Now your navigator will show you the levels instead of the story name that was there in the previous view. This you cannot undo these settings. Once you delete a story, it is gone. So be careful. Set up these things before. You can adjust the heights. You can change the name, but deleting a story will also delete the elements that are associated. So I would encourage do these setups first. So that is the main reason why I started with this particular slide where there is a checklist through which we will go through when we are working with ARCHICAD for setting up a project.